King's Heath, the high street has developed along, well, a main road, the A435, and King's Heath kind of really started. Well, there's been a number of levels of expansion. One was when this became a turnpike road about 1750, and that turnpike road was when all roads were privatised because they're all fallen into poor condition. And it's around 1750, when the roads are all improved, that you suddenly see King's Heath Centre and Moses Centre.
The land on this side of the main road, the High Street, was sold at very much the same time as land on the other side. But they stopped this side of the road becoming lots of little dwellings by putting a covenant on the sale of the land, which meant that they had to spend, I'm grasping now, but it was about 500
Woodfield Road, I'd also thought it must have been like a building site for about 30 years, because you look at the age of the houses, and between about 1870 and 1905, when this was built, there were houses springing up all the time. And you can look at old maps of King's Heath, and you'll see that there's only a couple of houses here. I think one down the road is an old one, Boscobel, sort of 1870. And if you look at the houses, you'll see they're all very different. That's because they're all built at different times. You only get a couple of terraces where there's, 5 or 6 houses together. If you go down to Arkle Villas, Stanley Villas, they were obviously built at one time. And then there was a couple up the road on our side. But then all the others were filled in sort of in between. And I think the last one to be built in that sort of period was about until 1905, 1906, which is this one. And then they just shoved a couple in the gaps.
They, as a couple, used to be able to remember Anne and Ted's house being built.
Brickworks and kiln, because the clay down there was really good for bricks. Kilns, brickworks, clay pit, kilns.
The next big step was when the railways came. You think there was a railway station in King's Heath, and that's about 1850, and that's when you see a sudden expansion in both Moseley and King's Heath in building, because everyone wants to live around the railway station.
This road, all the houses down here, they were going quite cheap compared to houses everywhere else, because they were sublets, so many of them, and a lot of Irish labourers lived in them.
I have a sense that I was told once that it had been built for and lived in by someone who had made their money in the jewellery trade, in this small jewellery manufacturer in Birmingham, which of course was bread and butter to a lot of rich people in the old days. But it was an amazing, amazing place. I mean, you walked in and there was a huge entrance hall that was 2 stories high. It went up to a big skylight that was way up in the roof. And so it was this, and then off were all the different rooms that had been the reception rooms and the dining room and the library and all the proper bits. And big staircase that went up like that and down.
It was divided into flats, 3 big flats with bedsits within them. It was very peculiar. There's a partition down the middle of the hall. It had a giant hall dividing up the ground floor and the first floor. And then the top floor, which is where I eventually moved into, had its own entrance. But there were people living there with ideas like me. Thought it was a beautiful house and it was badly disfigured. We tore down the partition and painted it.
It was an amazing house because, of course, the rooms were huge, and so people had them as very big bedsits, often with platforms built so that they had the living space downstairs. A huge garden, just a huge garden, very, part of it tended, around the house, but then there was some wild.
People were living in a community way, really. There were communes and all kinds of things going on.
For many years, he ran a folk club that started in the Hare and Hounds years and years and years ago, before I ever knew Jim and Jill. And then it moved from the Hare and Hounds to the Red Lion in Vicarage Road. and it still runs on a Saturday night, but its heyday was really when Jim ran it. And they had a really lot of well-known bands in that kind of folk rock crossover.
Birmingham has contributed a lot culturally. Bhangra music, this is where Bhangra music originates from in Birmingham. It all began here, and we've got a huge industry here. Reggae is in Birmingham, where the fusion of Jamaican reggae and British reggae came together. It was very important in the New Romantic movement with Duran Duran and the Run Runners Club. Very important, and also our part in punk as well.
So people used to just sort of say to each other, let's have a jam and turn up, and we never turned up and play music. I remember one Moseley festival where there was a collection of us just jammed all afternoon. I got my big drum, my big conga drum.
And we'd go to the folk club on a Saturday night, and any of the artists who were appearing, if they weren't from the relatively local area, they would come and stay. So after the folk club, we'd all troop up back over to Jim and Jill's and sit around the table with all these interesting artists and have a really great, just a chat and a laugh, and it was a brilliant Saturday night.